All right. Hello and welcome to Soul Sister Sunday. This is a new program we're starting here. I'm Linda, the light worker. My thoughts and intentions for this recording today is to share wisdom with others and thoughtful dialogue, such as what I have with my soul sisters. And I'd like to introduce today one of my closest soul sisters, Panther Moon. And she is, I'm going to say it, a tea monk. She has the Panther Moon Tea Company. And she'll tell us more about that in a minute. But her tea is just unbelievable. And she told me other wonderful things to say. Oh, she's also a medicine practitioner. So remember that tea and all the plant life around us can be viewed as medicine, and all of our practices, even our daily tarot, meditation, and all of that beautiful stuff is all a part of meditation. So please welcome Panther Moon. Hi, Panther. Thanks for
Hi,
being
Linda.
here.
Well, of course, my dear.
I know I kind of bamboozled you like with zero prep, but sometimes that's how spirit works things out and says, call her and hit the record button.
When spirit calls, I listen.
That's right.
We respond. Right.
We respond. Absolutely. So one of the things that came through to me today is I am just sitting here. Do you want to talk about your tea company, or should we just jump right into the cards? My cards are a hot deck. So
what
I'm
deck
thinking,
are you using today, Linda?
Are they itching? Okay. So what we're going to do is Panther and I have done joint readings before, so we're going to just sit thoughtfully and what are we going to focus our cards on? And I'll do whatever you say. You.
Well, let's ask what spirit wants us to know right now.
Oh, that's
and that what would be beneficial for all the people that are listening here. A reading for all of us. And I'm being called to use the Ted Andrews Nature Speaks deck, which is one of my favorite decks because it's using the energies of nature and the language and symbols of nature to speak to us. So Nature Speaks. Ted Andrews, he was an amazing guy. He was an amazing conduit for spirit and all the languages of spirit. Hey, let's look at, okay. One more, spirit. I just kind of wait till they jump out at me. That's how
sure.
I know I can get out of the way. Okay, thank you so much. All right. Yes, all right, thank you. All right. You want to start?
I'm gonna let you start because Spirit is. I first pulled a bunch of cards, and then Spirit said, "Let her talk," and then I'm still getting God. All right, you talk. And I'm gonna pull. We'll just do it like that. Go ahead.
Okay. So first card that was pulled or that fell out of the deck was the Prairie card, and it's move and adapt. My camera's not that great.
Yeah.
But it's the prairie. And so, in the prairie, you're under the blue sky and you're kind of at living with the elements and the changes that are on the prairie that can change very quickly. So the first card that is coming up in spirit wants us to know is that this is a time of being very flexible and being like the grass and being able to bend and staying very close to the earth. If we're close to the earth, and we're able to bend, we can withstand whatever the weather is and whatever the conditions are. I also see the mice. And so it's a time to pay close attention to the details. And the other animal that's showing up is the buffalo, of course. And the buffalo is about perseverance. The buffalo lives on the prairie, and it's about the winter medicine. And as we are entering into a time of winter, not just seasonally, but you know, as a collective here, we're kind of, winter is coming, to be able to persevere. And so is also looking at what we need to prepare for that. So move and adapt, to be able to be flexible, to not be attached so much to material things, but to be able to move with the energies that are coming in. And the buffalo medicine of perseverance, also of abundance, and knowing that we will be provided for. The second card that came up, which is in the center, is healing and balance. And this is the beach card. And so that is always, you know, coming and going. The tides are coming in and out, and the sands are always shifting, but there's always an intelligence with the ocean, and there's always a balancing of tides and of energies. And it's also, when we go on the beach, we have the negative ions, which are very refreshing. Also, I keep hearing that we're in a time of that we need to rebalance. There's a lot of rebalancing that's happening right now, and there's rebalancing in terms of our earth, the Mother Earth, the energies herself. And also that, you know, things have been so unsustainable for so long that things are being brought back into balance. And it's can be a huge wave coming in, or it can be, you know, soft, gentle waves kind of lapping in. Could be the tides going way out, or coming in very quickly. And so this is a time of healing and balance. And for many of us, we've known this time was coming, and we've actually looked forward to it. And being in it might be a different story, but when we can really sit on that beach and just kind of allow ourselves to be in relationship to all these movements, and we can feel the intelligence of it. And the third card I chose is the wind, that change is coming. And I think we can all agree that there's a huge influx of energy out there, and it's going to start really, things are going to start moving very quickly. And you know, I'm kind of seeing the Tower card here. There's a lot of change.
You mean this one? You mean this one? That's the only one that's come up?
The one that's been with me all morning. Yep.
Yeah.
Every time. Change is coming.
Yeah.
So again, it's a good time to be really centered and very still and very calm, and to be really established in the witness right now. And also, which would come up in the cards in a minute, there's a lot of opportunity for this in this change. As things break down, that energy is more available to us to actually recreate. So I'm just gonna leave that there. The next card that came was Maintain Hope. Okay, that's Iris. It's a beautiful card. And that is violet, right? And so one thing that we can do with that violet is circle ourselves with that violet flame that's very protective and purifying, but also to like really check in with our spiritual centers and what the information that is coming through. And that is the information that will inform us right now on when we need to go grocery shopping, what road to take, literally what road to take and what not to take, and also what kind of spiritual information that can inform us to help soothe and calm us when we're stressed out. So I feel like this is close soaked in a lot of scary, kind of chaotic, and so much hope that once we get through this, that we can actually create a way of living that's beneficial, more beneficial to us as a society and so forth. So please, when you're feeling scared, to go within and find that violet flame and just meditate on the flicker of the flame and just breathe. I feel like there's a lot of spiritual sustenance for us there. And lastly, which was what was coming up when I was talking to a friend earlier today, is that we each have a fertile new role. This is the valley card. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a valley. So in that valley, we are protected. And in that valley, we have this fertile soil. And what's coming up for me, what I was hearing from Spirit this morning, and this is what I told you earlier, the lot was coming up around that, is that so many of us who have known this time was coming, and we've done our work, and we've done our preparation, and we've done our learning and our studying, is that each of us who are probably watching here have been preparing for a long time for this time. And maybe things have not coalesced into like what our purpose is, but I think our purpose is given to us in small increments, and that this is the time for healers and light workers and sensitives and empaths and conscious beings to bring forth, even in small little caramel sized pieces of healing and inspiration and creativity. Bring that forward right now. This is the time from now on to really share what you have to share. And it doesn't have to be wrapped in a perfectly polished package. You don't have to have a business. You don't have to have a big following. Is that right now is the time to bring forth the best of what we have and share it, because now's the time to offer that hope and inspiration to people that there is an alternative field of resonance that is more authentic, more connected with the earth, more connected to spirit, more connected to what is truly important to us in our essence. And so all of us, we could just bring forth a little bit every day into our community, whether it's on social media, calling a friend, or however we do it. And it doesn't have to be a big deal. But we have a new role now, and to really just have confidence in that. So that is what I'm getting from the Nature Spirit deck, Spirit Speaks. And I will hand it over to you, my dear.
Wow, that was really beautiful and very helpful. I sure hope the sound is okay. And I just want to mention, if it is spotty, this is our first time, so whatever. Thanks for sticking around. Today I'm working with the Muse Tarot deck. And I love this deck. It's by Chris Ann, and it's just got these divine feminine images that are strong and powerful. And I keep being told that we are entering the dawn of the woman, and that being the divine feminine. And for months, I have been hearing that we are in the absolute in-between time of it all. We are in between worlds. We are in a time and space reality where our thoughts and our manifestations are coming so quickly that it is paying attention to what we think of is what we end up creating, and how much energy we put in the thought bubble, be it fear or sickness or fear. I keep hearing fear of the COVID, fear politically, fear of income, fear of food. Like, as much energy that goes feeding that fear is exactly what's going to be manifested. And so the ultimate challenge is to be within, to truly stay within. Now, my regular viewers know that every time I step into looking at COVID or the election or income insecurity or our global experience, and I'm hoping that Panther and I can kind of talk a little bit further than our usual topics on my daily videos, because many topics I don't talk about there, like outside beings coming in and helping us, a divine intervention, what that might actually look like by someone in a different dimension as we are traveling through these multi dimensions at the same time. Some physicists believe that we live the past, present, and future all at once, which is why when you wake up in the mirror and you look at yourself, you go, holy cow, I aged 30 years overnight. And then other days you can say, wow, I look pretty great today. Like, how is that happening? It's really about, I believe, molecular time travel, but that's a whole nother topic. So I did throw some cards as you were talking and shuffling about where we are right now. And again, the tower is
Wow.
so prominent. She is coming a tumbling down. Down she rolls,
Yep.
down the old paradigm. And this means not just like politically, because there is a possibility of Trump winning. We are not talking about that. We're talking about the systems that have held him in office coming tumbling down, not just the people. I'm getting if Biden comes in, it tumbles down because Kamala will eventually be the president. He's not going to live out his term. Oh, I'm jumping into politics. It's dying to come out. But I'm seeing the Wheel of Fortune that if Trump wins, he's not going to live through the whole election. And there'll be, I don't even want to look at that. But the systems are coming crumbling, crumbling, crumbling down. And with it comes this four of emotions, which is like the four of cups. So I always think of the four of emotions of the Wild Unknown Tarot deck, which is a picture of a rat walking all across the glasses, the goblets, right? Like it, not only is it your mucky muck, it's your worst fears kind of presenting themselves. This is about everything being contaminated. But these are the structures that are breaking down. All of them are coming down. The way we think, the way we earn living, the way we relate to others and socialize. This pandemic is about us learning how to be more insular and recognizing that we are on a spaceship. We're on spaceship Earth. We are flying through space all the time. If we were taken away from our planet, let's say I was called and snatched up and went off with the light beings, let's hope, fingers crossed, some nice ones, and I got lost in the universe, I would never be able to identify where I am in the universe by this planet. It's impossible. We can't even really chart it. We can't chart out the night sky. We have a general understanding of where we are within our galaxy, general idea of the, but we couldn't even identify our galaxy if we expand beyond our galaxy. So that's what I mean about all of these different realities being shuffled up, being transformed in a way that we can't, it's beyond our comprehension. And while these tumbling down happen, then this emotional crap comes bubbling up, like that self-doubt, like, oh, I thought I could trust in so-and-so who's always been my rock, but he's unavailable now, or she's unavailable. Everybody's going through their stuff. So go easy with that emotions that gets prickling up. I'm also thinking of how many millions of rats live in harmony in New York City. When you're living in a big city with rats, like if you think of Manhattan Island, they say there are 8 rats for every human being. There are 8 million people. So you do the math. Wow. Like, that's a lot of rats. I mean, it's a reason to not go into the subway or go in, whatever. But recognizing that kind of infestation takes a while to get rid of. If there are rats in the White House, if there are rats in our system, then it may take a while. That's what this in-between time is all about. And the COVID is protecting us truly, physically. Also with the rats, the bubonic plague comes up, right? Like, this is serious. The non-believers out there with the COVID are mistaken. And because it's a virus that will mutate. A vaccine is unlikely to be highly helpful, but there will be something that shifts in our paradigm where we're able to live with it. So the following, that's not all doom and gloom, because here we get this new voices card, which is the Ace of Voices, which is the same card that I just did with this. I got a Biden win, but it might take a few days till it's known. I see a blue wave coming in. But also when when Panther was reading her, doing her reading, I heard there was going to be a purple wave coming, and perhaps a new political party will emerge that is part red and part blue, because not everyone is a radical. This country, if it is to survive, needs to create a new voice for it to be heard, for those who are not being heard. And I see, and again, that red with the blue makes the purple. So it is going to be about, Bill Maher did this incredible thing of saying, like, let's talk to each other, like after the election, no matter what happens. Let's talk to each other. Let's not pick up guns, but let's talk. And this is the invitation with the Ace of Voices, to be able to be speaking a new truth, because neither one of these parties are right on, honestly. They're both systems have been broken. Politics really want to come through because it's something bigger. The United States has taken this democracy show and put it on the road, and so many countries have followed their path. So recognizing that a new voice needs to emerge out of this. The AOC voice, the blending of the best of the socialists with perhaps a third party. Perhaps that is how this nation will heal. I'm asking about COVID. They're like, oh, keep going, keep going. All right, so go ahead.
See the rainbow nation in that
The rainbow
part.
tribe, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it is a new tribe. It is this
Like
new beginning.
New coalition, kind of intersectional coalition people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's happening. But with it comes grief. This is the Three of Voices, which is like the Three of Swords. And that's all about, sorry, my nose is running. That is about, I'm seeing grieving the past, the present, and the future. Grieving all of it. You know, in the before time, we didn't know how good we had it in the before times, in some ways, right? The free hugging, the the debauchery that we had in the before times, those days are gone. They're not coming back. And there are many who are mourning this. And it feels as if it's an ancestral grief. Like this can also be with Great Depression coming, because it's just to be aware that you might not be personal, I might not be feeling it personally, but those around me may not witness how beautiful this transformation is. As I've said to my soul sisters, this is the big show. This is not the Soul Sister Sunday show. We came here for this event. We wondered for years when it was going to come, if it was going to come, how it was going to come, where you were going to be, like all of those things. I can remember sitting at Amma's feet in Washington, D.C. at the Pentagon, right? And knowing it's coming, but not knowing when. And
yeah, we prayed for it, didn't we, there?
We did.
Whoops.
We did some big work there, but we all did it together. You know, there's no mistake that that experience happened at the Pentagon. That was not a mistake. So it's all of these forces working together for this transformation, and there is grief that comes with it. So the invitation is to be gentle with the stories, how we're telling the stories. You know, there's so much
Can I
that
say,
we're,
can I talk
yeah,
about that?
please.
Can I say something about the grief? Is that I feel, having been on Zoom with a lot of people, that grief has been something that's been coming up for a lot of people, and it's really not something that's acceptable in our society. If you feel grief, you're supposed to get over it really quick. So it's kind of inconvenient for most people to be around
Mhm.
grief, and I just feel that there's so much unprocessed grief in all of us, and it while it's grief is kind of a wild ride, it would be a really good thing if we can be in touch with our grief and allow it space and time. And you can do that in so many ways, and just even when you're alone, just to kind of journal with it or something. But there's a lot of bottled up grief, and because we've not dealt with our grief, I think we have gotten this far down a very destructive path because we're not dealing with our grief. So please, if it's coming up, please honor it, light a candle for it, make some time for it, and it won't last forever. I can tell you that because I've been through a lot of grief in the last year. I mean, I'm talking like crushing grief, and it does move, and if you allow it to move through you, and it's really good to allow that, because it kind of like clears the way for that new fertile valley.
Mhm.
And that we've lost so many of our countrymen and women and children and elders, and we haven't even touched that grief yet of what we're going through. So I just wanted to say that because I feel it's so important, and I'm so glad that that card came up, even though it means heartache and heartbreak on
Right.
some level. That's okay. That
Yeah.
really, it's okay to dance with grief, and it's like a fire. Just feed
Mhm.
that fire until there's no more wood. You know what I mean? Just like really allow yourself to go through it.
Yeah, I definitely hear ancestral grief too. Like look at the eyes in this sky here that are, it feels as if it is a time where our ancestors, we weren't allowed to grieve in the old days. Grieving was something you did at the funeral. I mean, I can remember having somebody say, "Oh, you over it yet?" When my mother passed away, like, are you kidding me? My grief is a lifetime of grief, of learning how to live with grief and how to process grief. And it is so complicated. And not only do we have our own, we carry our ancestors who fled countries, who, they're grieving our nation. When I see this barren wheat field, I think of the farmers who were in the United States who never recovered from that terrible storm this summer. It's got a fancy word. It's like that 200 miles an hour
Derecho.
wind
Yeah.
that just wiped out all the crops. Like, how do you recover from that? Like when you think it's all lost. Because the final card I got for this section of our reading is the death card. And this is about coming to terms with, I always read this as a rebirth card, but literally, this is about the death of the old, the tower really allowing this to show up. Like it is dying, it must die, it will die, it's dead. And that
Wow.
is just of the old way. And I see that, is it a butterfly or something over her mouth? Right. And I see that the end of us, I see it as the end of women being silenced, right? The end of that era of not having our voices heard, not listening to the people, not acting
Mhm.
in their behalf. And
Mhm.
that's a big one because the corruption that has happened, I mean, if you look at the last 2,000 years, I always said I didn't reincarnate. I jumped in during when Hildegard was here in the 12th and 13th century.
I
And
know
then
you.
and I jumped out and I
Yeah,
wouldn't come back until the 1950s. Not that it was great then,
it
but
wasn't
there's been,
great. I was there too with you. I didn't
yeah,
like it.
And I died as a 10-year-old boy in the 1950s. Like I jumped in the 40s and I jumped out and then I came back, like, whoop, not yet. I could really feel as to that tremendous grief of that abuse of power. And the ending of that abuse of power is from when women were silenced in the church, you know, the Gnostics not being mentioned in the Bible, right? Like all of the divine Mary Magdalene work and Mother Mary work, like the divine power and the force of the women. Not even mentioning Lilith in the book of creation, Genesis. Like I can go way back. And so anyway, I'm just going to pause there, stop there, because I'll start going.
Can I talk about the death card a minute too?
Absolutely, please.
Yeah, that's been coming up in a lot of readings about our country. And I don't know if it's necessarily the death of our country or our government or whatever, but what I want to say about the death card is I feel like, for whatever it's worth, that it's when the ego and when our will has run out of options. All of our strategies have fallen apart. All of our illusions have been shattered, and all of our last-ditch attempts to try to survive or to fight is no longer viable, and we have to surrender. And I feel like the death and the surrender, I feel like it should be called the surrender card, because it's really not something we'd ever choose to come to. I mean, we can willfully relax into death. But when it comes to us in whatever form, whether it's physical or the death of a relationship or the death of government or whatever, it's always it's something that we're really familiar with and that we're really attached to. It's never an easy process. And so when I think of death, I think of the final surrender, and out of that final surrender, the phoenix rises. Because that's when our ego and our mind has surrendered to a higher possibility, a higher intelligence, a higher consciousness, a higher idea, anything like that. So the death card looks really scary to some people because they're terrified of death. And I understand that. I mean, I've dealt with my own issues around that, but it's also a necessary part of, it's a part of nature. I mean, really, really, really is a part of nature. And yet within that death, there is a rebirth. It's just like the roots are regrouping and gathering nourishment and dreaming its new life. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's right on.
Yeah, I'm really hearing that too. Yeah, and so many have been predicting the phoenix rising, right? And I've often thought, when is that phoenix going to rise? Is this the phoenix rising? It hasn't happened yet, because we got to get it all. It's got to come down.
We're not to the phoenix yet. We can't bypass into the phoenix, I don't think, for a while.
Yeah, and we won't. I mean, we'll know when we're in it. I'm hearing 2024 might be like, we're going to be in this in-between time for a while. People are feeling like, oh, in a few weeks, months, whatever, they'll be out and about. It's going to be, that's not the way it's going to work. It's just, things are fundamentally changing. And this is the opportunity to let go of those things in ourselves that we no longer want to participate in, or, to really, it's an opportunity to see if what no longer serves me, what sort of thing, what fundamental core belief just doesn't serve me anymore. It's a good time to really allow those to percolate too. And that's exactly like what you said about having that conversation with the ego and being able to let it go. Because ultimately, it is about letting go the ego, because we know we reincarnate, we spiral around, we've made agreements to be on this planet. I'm joyfully here and now, right? But, the eternity is so uncertain, and yet being able, like the way I'm being able to speak to my ancestors, elders, guides who come through, I know that perhaps they're alive in a different dimension, doing something else, also able to tap in to this other cosmic reality. You know, there's this fascinating, I want to call it a TED Talk, but it's not a TED Talk. It's like a podcast about some studies that have been done with transcendental meditation, which you know I'm a huge proponent of, and the ability to, and they use binaural beats, which is the reprogramming, which I've been doing for years, of listening to the different tones to get both hemispheres of our brain working to help evolve consciousness. So let's just take a thought journey. What if this is the death of our limited consciousness? Let's imagine we as a civilization, as a population, are merely not even toddlers yet. Mikio Kachu, who is a physicist, says that on the planetary scales, we're at a zero level compared to our star brothers and sisters through this, through space. We are nothing. And it is this evolution process of taking out our thumb and learning how to stand up and walk, like, or maybe we're just learning how to crawl consciously. You know, we are stepping into a new consciousness. And the more of us who participate with that, the more likely it will happen easier and more gently, where I believe it's going to be just a flash that just one day you wake up and consciousness has shifted. But it's how much of the rubble we want to be in, right?
I want to say too on the death thing and is that I feel like if we allow the grief, I took a walk the other day and went out to a park I call the Shire. It looks like the Hobbit Shire. And I just noticed that everything that was so vibrant all summer, I've been really getting to know this park very, very close, you know, very well, and like observing it very closely. Everything had just bowed over and had released. All the trees are releasing their leaves. And so there's something about that importance of aligning with nature right now that's been coming up this whole year, is that the earth is actually calling us back to herself. And so we look at nature as our guide that's been going on for millions of years, and maybe billions of years, we don't know, is that there is a cycle of life that we can observe and apply to ourselves, because we weren't taught to process grief. So there's the trees and all the bushes and the blackberries are all bent over and are releasing their leaves. They're releasing their creations. And some of the plants are actually dying. They just look like, you know, it looks just like gray. You know, there's just like no green. But there is that promise of rebirth. It's a promise. And that's the closest thing we have to permanence in our lives is nature. So that promise of rebirth. So I feel like that the fall and the autumn period is a lot to teach us right now. Very simply, just about the process of letting go and letting go of our creations of our mind, creations that no longer serve us, and letting it go back to the earth to compost, and within ourselves too. Like that will facilitate the death passage into rebirth so much more easier, right? There's so much more grace to that process. As long as we're not like forced into this death and people freak out, right? But if we're allowing this process of letting go, of going within, of like of all the energy that we have, of like going back in and like going to our roots and really going into our center right now. Otherwise, if we're fighting it, it's not going to be a peaceful death, right?
Right.
So I just wanted to say that because that was coming up. Spirit was telling me, showing me those images. So.
And the card that came out while you were talking was this Eight of Voices, which is that belief of being bonded, like, right, being bonded. She's in bondage. But we don't recognize that this could be her free will. right? Of that bondage. So releasing ourselves from bondage, from the systems, and recognizing that you have the human right to exist. You have the human right to live and not be afraid about where dinner's coming or have so much fear. There's so much poverty. Like, this is a human right, and this bondage has been used to oppress you. So it is releasing the bondage, recognizing that we have been in bondage to these systems. That's what's trembling down.
Yes.
And on the COVID is that there are sacrifices. These are human sacrifices who are going through the Hopi prophecy.
Yeah.
The prophecies have been around for eons about the population decrease. And the Hopis and, you know, all of our brother tribes have mentioned this. It's in the, you know, the book of Revelation. It's everywhere. This is part of the process. Spirit keeps saying this is not a dress rehearsal. This is the big show.
Yeah.
And that possible physical death is out there for those, our loved ones or acquaintances or whatever. Ideals might have to die too. So many things. And it is, I believe, this in-between time, learning how to live with grief. I think you're absolutely right.
Whenever I've gone through, you know, as people of the path, some may call it the shamanic path or whatever, is that there are so many deaths and rebirths that we go through. And I mean, I've gone through several like total takedowns where the identity is just shattered. Okay. And so I see that is it the Eight of Swords that would be.
Yeah, that's the Eight of Swords.
So that is self-imposed restriction or bondage. And I do feel like in this time of fall and winter, you know, this time that we're in right now, it is super important to examine our belief systems and see if they work for us, because we have, you know, we're human, we're impressionable. When we were very young, we're super impressionable. We took on our belief systems of our parents and our teachers and everyone else and their parents and religion or whatever. I'm not saying anything bad about religion, but we've taken on belief systems that may or may not be fitting for us anymore. But we've, you know, to some degree, we have to consciously undo those cords. We have to cut those cords, and you know, it's not always easy. And when we're in a takedown like this, we're in right now on a collective. Some people just have, you know, these are kind of, they believe central to their identity. And so when they're faced with that threat to their perceived identity, which is their false identity, but, you know, I don't want to be condescending, but our true identity is a divine, right?
Right.
And we have a much bigger being that we're connected to. But when that false identity is challenged, that they will hold on for dear life and fight and rail against any kind of change. And that's what we're seeing, you know, with the big trucks and the intimidation. And, you know, I had a relative just say yesterday that he thinks that what's going on is the best thing that's ever happened. The only thing I could say was like, wow, okay, but maybe it is. I mean, maybe it is in the long run, because we've had to really confront these archaic belief systems that had us saddled and enslaved to an economic system that is completely made up, in my opinion. Of course, we need barter and we need trade, but to be enslaved to a few, and you know, so much unhappiness and so much poverty and suffering because of this enslavement. So I think you're right on, sister. Your readings are right on today. I mean, they always are, but
yours too. Yeah.
I mean, they just boom.
Wow. Well, I think we should just kind of end it there to recognize that the rebirth opportunity is, as I have believed for a long time, the birthing of the human being, allowing to be rather than the human doing. And with that, we do it with consciousness. So, obviously, a breech birth, and we're coming out feet first, right?
I feel, what did I want to say? What I want to say is no matter who wins this election,
Yeah.
We never needed a president to begin with.
Right.
Okay, I just want to say that. But we never needed one, but who said we did? But anyway, that's the point. It doesn't matter in a sense, because what matters is your relationship to yourself. And the real work, it doesn't matter who wins, because we're going to be faced either way. We're going to be confronted either way with ourselves. So what matters the most is, are we being true to ourselves? Are we listening to ourselves? Do we trust ourselves? Do we have a relationship to ourselves? And then from there, we can extrapolate that. Do we have a relationship with spirit? We have a relationship with the earth. Do we trust the earth? Do we trust our relationship to the divine? And these are things that can be easily masked by the pursuit of capitalism and the pursuit of anything outside of ourselves, you know.
Right.
And it's such a distraction to be, you know, and they know it too. I believe they know it. They're trying to harness our consciousness because we're on this precipice of change. And turn off the news, turn off the TV, and turn on the,
go inside, go within, the third eye. So I'm shuffling my animal deck here, and I'm wondering if we should end on an animal, or if you want to pull one final card. Oh, you got it.
I got an animal deck too, but yeah, let's pick an animal.
Let's pull an animal. Let's shuffle, and
Okay.
and let's see what comes up.
Spirit's also saying we have a lot of support, and don't forget that there's a lot of support. We have each other. Oh, okay. Okay. Interesting. Excuse me.
The puppies have been very good today.
Okay. Wanted to see who this. Ooh, it's a bit deep card. What do you have?
Okay, I'll start. I got the opossum, and I'm using that Jamie Sands deck, but I'm not reading her. But the possum is all about here. This is from Stephen Farmer, whom I love. I think he really wrote the
book. Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of the animals, but I don't know everybody. So I'm looking this one up. And here's what it says. In order to accomplish whatever you've been striving to achieve, it'll be necessary to stretch yourself a bit further than you think you can. The situation you find yourself in will require that you be a good actor, in that you'll have to exhibit behavior that's opposite of what you're actually thinking or feeling. Do some planning. Develop an effective strategy for the object of your concern, with backup plans in place in case your first effort doesn't work out. If you're in a tight corner, rely on your instincts to determine the best way out. Study either Aikido, right? Yeah, or Tai Chi in order to learn to use the dynamic and receptive forces as useful approaches in challenging situation. I'm really hearing Tai Chi too. But again, with that meditation and being in that thoughtful contemplation. Remember, the possum does a lot of really good stuff. Don't they eat all the insects and go in and
they do.
They do amazing work. If you have a possum on your property, you want him there. You want their help. So that's the animal from over here today.
I love the possum. one thing that came up when you were talking about it is, maybe people can like just look into it as becoming a gray man.
Mm.
And so, I mean, we have all the spiritual realities, we have the physical realities too. And that is, if you're feeling like you're not if you're out and about and you're not feeling safe or whatever, look into what being a gray man means. It's just kind of like becoming kind of invisible, And also what I see in that too is that when the possum gets overwhelmed, it kind of goes into a protective sleep almost. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed too, it's okay just to kind of like take a nap.
Take a nap, right? And they're nocturnal. They're up all day and night. They follow their biological need, right?
I love seeing possum babies.
Yeah.
I love that. It's just so like earthy and just so primal. Similar, well, a little bit similarly, when I see how we're going to get through this time, at least in maybe just for the next couple of weeks, I don't know, is the tortoise came up, which is the 10 of, I call it 10 of Earth, 10 of Ancients. I don't know if you see that. It's the tortoise. Movement through pressure. Movement through pressures. And when I look at the tortoise, obviously that we think of being slow wins the race, right? Slow and steady wins the race. And also has that big shell, which is quite hard. And if you need be, just, kind of retreat into your shell until you feel like you can go forward again. But using that innate intelligence of when to move, being very deliberate, and slow to medium is just fine. We don't have to do anything fast right now. There's nothing that could be accomplished. There's a lot of energies that are quite strong. There's not a lot of thing we can do about a lot of things that we're going through necessarily. And so movement through pressures is slow and steady. And if it's too much, just go into your shell until it's ready to come out again.
Yeah.
And it's going to be little by little,
Yeah. The message I got really clearly was we're on Turtle Island, right?
And also the tortoise lives a long yeah.
Sumi, Panther, I think we missed you there. You kind of cut out. So I'm hoping you come back.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much. I have enjoyed this so much, and I hope the viewers really appreciate it. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Panther Moon Tea? And I'll have a link in the description box to the Panther Moon Tea Company, which is her tea empire.
Well, thank you so much. It's actually a more humble little tea company, but my love of nature and my love of community brought me to the tea, the medicine of tea. And my specialty is pu'er tea, which is kind of the grandmother plant of all the tea in the world. So it's kind of when you drink in pu'er, you kind of go back to that very old plant that's been around for a long time, and from very old tea trees, not tea bushes, but tea trees. So pu'er tea is kind of our specialty. And also, thank you for asking, because I'm just kind of expanding into and kind of back into where I started. And that is, I started out as a flower essence company, and I'm actually going to be putting 5 essences back on the tea site and expanding it into more of the herbals, bringing in more of the mushroom medicines and some of the herbal medicines that I've wildcrafted this year. Those are going on the site as well. And I feel like they all kind of go together. You can have a great tea session with some reishi mushroom or some red belted conchs or adding a few drops of flower essences. The essence formulas are kind of formulated for these times, and they're very simple. Nothing too tricky. Very simple, and simple is best. And I'm kind of wanting to push myself to really offer these things. I'm saying push myself because sometimes it's kind of hard to get out there and put yourself out there. But it's time. It's time for all of the medicine to go back on the site, and hopefully be of some service, be of some help in this transition.
Well,
So thank you.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that you're here and that you're in my soul family. I can tell you, I've been drinking Panther Moon Teas for almost 10 years. I mean, a long time. And I just love them. I'm a daily pour drinker every morning. That's what goes in first. So it is absolutely divine medicine. And I just am grateful you're here and we're connected, and for our calls and our sisterhood. So thank you so much. So anyway, I'm going to end the recording here, but I just want to thank everyone for popping by. So
blessings
you
to
hang on, Sumi, you hang on for a second.
Okay.
That's our show for today.
That's our show for today.
So let's hope it goes well, and whatever, let me know how you're doing. Please like, share, subscribe, all that nonsense on YouTube.
Yes.
Okay, thanks for being here. Ciao for now.